Conversion Day. Good evening, sir. How's your day been today? The man standing at my door looked to be in his mid-40s. He wore a blue jumper over a white shirt, with his collar peeking out in a very priestly manner. His hair was the colour of old straw, and perched upon a large pink forehead. His eyes were a very pale blue and seemed very cold when he smiled his big, jovial grin. Under normal circumstances I would try to be polite in my disinterest in whatever he wanted to buy or sell, but he had managed to annoy me before I had even opened the door. Firstly, contrary to what he said, it was not a good evening, but 20 to midnight. I was in my pyjamas, and the cold was already seeping in and raising little goosebumps across my arms. Secondly, this man at the time of night when I had put the kids to sleep 3 hours ago had practically stabbed the doorbell in his eagerness multiple times, undoubtedly waking up the kids upstairs. I glanced down at the sheaf of leaflets he had in his arms. The one on the top was blazoned with a golden cross and had the words "The Good News" in all caps and underlined twice. I groaned. The man followed my gaze down upon this exclamation, and his smile creased a fraction. "Now I know what you're gonna," he began, but I cut him off. "Sorry, but no, I'm not interested in your pitch, and quite frankly, I find myself a little annoyed at you coming round here at this time of night, and ringing the doorbell like your life depended on it. So good night, good luck, whatever. Just bye." As I was about to close the door, he stuck a brown loafer out and stopped it halfway. "Are you fucking kidding me?" I demanded. "You're lost, friend, but that doesn't make you any less important or beloved. When a lamb returns to the flock, does the shepherd turn it away? No, he is overjoyed and welcomes it back with open arms. Please move your foot away, sir." He looked down at his foot, then back at me. His smile was completely gone now. "Not interested in all, then? In Christianity?" "No. Now, goodbye." Firmly I nudged his foot out with my own and managed to slip on the chain. His eyes ran the course of it, as if he was sizing it up before the door was fully closed. He stood a moment longer at my porch, glaring at me through the door's small window, then finally turned away. Further up the driveway was a small gang of people, looking exactly like shy children getting their friend to ask the neighbour for the ball they kicked over the wall into the backyard. I noticed a few odd things as he had turned away. The wind had picked up a fair bit and ruffled the stack of leaflets like a dealer's hand. I got to see the first 4 before the rest were obscured. Strangely enough, not all of them seemed to be Christian in nature. The one under the Good News seemed to be written in Arabic. The one underneath that looked like it was about Scientology. And lastly, the 4th wasn't even religious, but a roll of coupons for the local takeaway. The second thing I noticed, though I thought nothing much of it at the time and assumed it was a result of my fatigue or a trick of the light, was that when the man turned away from the porch light, his eyes had turned red in the shadows. I overheard a snippet of conversation between the man and his friends by the footpath. Shade on the door. "Silver?" "Unfortunately, yeah." I tallied that bit of info as some sort of religious talk and made my way back to the living room. My wife looked up from the couch as I entered, eyebrows raised in mild curiosity. "Just one of them religious nuts," I replied to the unspoken question. "What religion?" I considered that for a moment. "All of them, I think." She gave me a bewildered look, probably assuming that I had told an unfunny joke, before shrugging and patting the seat next to her. "Want to watch some Netflix?" I declined the offer, stating that I was about to collapse from exhaustion. She nodded sympathetically and gave me a good-night peck on the cheek. I checked in on the kids before bed. The younger one was still asleep, the older only pretending. I stood there until he broke out into a grin. I towseled his hair and told him to go back to sleep. I had just fluffed up my own pillow when I heard some commotion outside. It was the sound of multiple car engines ticking over, and the doors being slammed closed. On top of this was the sound of even more cars turning in. I live in an estate, not by any main road, so the sound of such heavy traffic confused me. At first I assumed there must be some party going on, maybe an 18th given the amount of shouting I heard, but the cars kept coming. I'm too curious for my own good, so of course I peeked out from the bedroom curtains. Outside the street was thronged by groups of people gathered around the driveways, with one person in a blue jumper like the guy I had dealt with at each door. At the end of the street where it meets the road leading out, a line of hatchbacks, SUVs and even a jeep had formed a makeshift barricade. I felt a cold hand wrap itself over my shoulder and I lurched back in shock. "What's gotten you so worked up?" my wife asked. "Jesus, you startled me," I yelped, and pulled back the curtains for her. "There's something going on out there, have a look." She leaned over me, her hand finding mine, and I could see her concern and not a little fear rush across her face. "There's so many," she murmured. Then Miss Audrey just answered the door. Miss Audrey's house was the third one on the other side of the street. She was probably in her late 80s now and took care of her husband who had been confined to the upstairs bedroom for almost 5 years now. Something to do with his heart. She didn't look too much better, pale under her porch light, leaning heavily on her crutches. She had fallen around 2 weeks ago and still insisted that they didn't take her husband to a retirement home, or even hire one of those caregivers who help the elderly around their homes. The man by her door was the same one who had talked to me. He seemed quite animated, one hand pressed against a stack of leaflets like he was testifying in court, the other hand waving aimlessly around as he talked. Miss Audrey seemed a little more confused at what he had to say than interested, while the congregation on her driveway seemed to be hanging on to every word. My wife made a sound of disgust. "That bastard there is standing on her daffodils," she pointed out, and it was true. He was a short, bald guy, a little away from the rest of the group, but just as enraptured as they were. The man seemed to be delivering the next part of his sermon now. His focus was now on something behind Miss Audrey and her hole. He pointed it out to her and she turned to look, steadying herself on the crutches. Then the man pushed her. I choked back a shout and my wife squeezed my hand in shock. The man now rushed through the door, and like a wave in motion, the driveway group leapt forward, tripping over each other in their eagerness and banging against the house when they all tried to fit through the door at the same time. When the last person was in, he slammed the door so hard behind him that its semicircular window broke into tiny tinkling pieces. "Those bastards," my wife whispered. That's illegal. Assault and breaking and entering and—" "I'm calling the police," I told her, already reaching for the phone on the bedside table. "Can you keep an eye on the kids? I don't want them seeing any of this." She nodded quickly, leaving the room with eyes wide in shock. It took an unusually long time before the call got through. 911, what's your emergency? "Yes, hello, I'd like to report an assault on an elderly person," I said, and gave them the address. There was a pause before the woman on the other end told me that she was transferring my call to the appropriate department. I thanked her, a little impatiently, and heard a click as someone else picked up the call. "Hello, there's been—" I began, but the other voice cut me off. "Good evening, sir. How has your day been today?" It was him, the man. I almost threw my phone across the room. I was feeling lightheaded now, my heart thrashing around in my chest like a caged animal. I didn't want to see what was going on outside, but I could see the Audrey's house from the space I had left open and the curtains. Upstairs, where Mr. Audrey would be wired up to all those medical instruments around his bed, the curtains were twitching and writhing from the commotion going on behind them. Something heavy fell across one and left a spiderweb of cracks on the window. Then suddenly the curtains were torn violently off their railings, and the window erupted in vivid crimson. I twisted away from the horror, fell onto my knees, and reached onto the carpet. Nothing much came up, but now my throat felt dry and scalded. My wife checked in, hugging our children close to her. "The police?" she asked desperately. I shook my head, ashamed of having my children seeing their dad shaking like a leaf, and on all fours like a terrified mutt. "The attic. We're going up there, to the attic," my wife said, too scared to form proper sentences. That seemed like a good idea. There wouldn't be too much space, what with all the bags of old clothes and holiday decorations up there, but it had a staircase we could pull up in an emergency, and this definitely was an emergency. The kids went up first, all sleepy and more confused than scared. My wife followed, pushing them up impatiently and telling them to make room. As I made my own way up, I couldn't help but hear their strangled shouts from outside, very close to our own house. I yanked up the stairs and we were left with only one bare light bulb illuminating our ashen faces. The attic window was grey with dust and smeared in something sticky and brown, too far away from us to provide any light. I figured it was my duty to keep a lookout and spare my family for any of the horrible sights. My account would hopefully get those horrible people punished for their crimes. Wiping away the smudge, it looked like they'd hit most of the houses. The Audreys were not even the worst tragedy. Up further, the Vaughners' house had looked like it had been skinned and gutted, and I swear to God I saw people crawling over the roof like flies on leftovers. Even further over those houses, to the other corner of the estate, I saw a line of traffic slowly trickling its way forwards, and the people being disgorged from their own cars. I saw rabbis and priests and men in smart suits, nuns and choir boys and pizza delivery boys. I think I even saw someone with a pasta strainer on their head. But what scared me the most was the man at my door. He was there and over there and on top of the burning car and knocking on that door and getting out from that minivan over there. I lost count at 25 of the exact same man. Seemingly his function was to talk to the people at the doors while the others watched from behind for some signal or phrase to spring into action. Above me, a helicopter loudly hovered nearby, and eventually it came into view with the words "Happy Conversion Day" seemingly graffitied across the side. It's now almost 5 in the morning. A few houses, mine included, have been left unscathed. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I didn't listen to the man's pitch. Maybe it had something to do with the chain. The man did mention it was silver to his group. My wife and kids are asleep now, and I've been drifting in and out for the last hour. I'm hoping this account is released to the public in some shape or form, and at least that will mean I've been able to post it. I don't know how widespread this situation is, but if you're hearing someone ringing your doorbell late at night, please do not answer it. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love it if you could please subscribe and leave me a comment telling me what you thought. And other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day.